Hello, my name is Fabrice Faustin, and I'm in a group with Daniel Magana, Abraham Martinez Brito, and Channing Andrews. Today we'll be presenting our IMDB database project, which consists of the implementation of a ER diagram. So let's get right to it. So here we have our full ER diagram, and I want to get quickly into the specifications, meaning the entities that we'll be having, and some functionalities that we want for this ER diagram. We see that we have 6 entities here. We have the movies. Our main entity here is going to be our movies, since we are modeling based off IMDB. We have director entity, an actor entity, an awards entity, and also a special entity, a production company entity, and a special reviews entity, which we'll be talking in depth about later. For functionalities we are expecting for our ER diagram, we like basic functions like being able to search a movie by title, being able to search how many actors worked on the specific movies, the list of awards an actor or director has received, or just calculate the rating of a movie based on the reviews, the amount of reviews. These are some functionalities that we're expecting for our ER diagram, and without further ado now we can move to our first entity.
So the first entity I wanted to talk about is our movies entity, this being our main entity for a movies database. We have quite a few attributes here, mainly because we want our user to really go in depth with their searches for a movie. But I wanted to talk about 3 of them in particular. We have our genre right here, which has a double circle around it because we can have multiple values in there. Like a rom-com or an action thriller, not just an action movie, but an action thriller movie. And next we got these dash circles around rating, meaning it can be derived from another entity, mainly our reviews entity. And then next we have our URL. This is our key attribute here. This is a specific URL that links to this movie, so we can 100% find it with this URL. Here is an example of the way IMDB implemented their movies entity. As you can see, we got the title, we got the runtime, the date, we got our review rating right here, we got user reviews and photos down there, and also a trailer. And so that's kind of how we're going to also implement our movies entity and attributes. Next, we have the actor entity. As we can see here, it's pretty simple. We have a name that includes a first name and a last name, a birthday, a unique ID, where this is going to be our key attribute for this entity. And the reason we are including this is because people can have the same name, and we would like to be able to find any specific person. Next, we have a bio. We have another double circle. This is their other projects. We hope our actor is successful and can work on more than one thing in their lifetime. And same thing with awards down here. Next, here's an example of how they implement their actor's entity. We have the name, we have his titles. He's an actor, producer, director. His bio, over here we can see his birthday. And if we scroll down, we can see even more awards and nominations and stuff like that. The next entity I wanted to talk about is our director's entity. This is very similar to our actor's entity. It has a name, composed of first and last name, birthday, a picture, a bio, and also, again, unique ID. That way we can find the specific person. That's our key attribute there. And here is an example of the implementation of a director's entity. We have the name, we have director, producer, writer, title, a bio, birthday, just like the actor's entity. And then we also have awards down here, very similar. And next, we're going to start with this one right here.
I will talk about the production company entity. And this one, first of all, it has a key attribute ID because production company is going to have similar names or sometimes maybe the same name. So with that ID, we can definitely be sure that it's that one production company that we're talking about. Another thing I would like to talk about is that it has a producer multiple attributes. That is because a production company can have many producers. Um, and we would like to give you an example of how IMDB Pro does it, but we don't have IMDB Pro, so we can't really show it to you.
And so moving on to our last bits of entities, we have the awards entity. And we can see for attributes, they are all single value attributes. We have the unique ID of the award. That will be the way for us to identify the specific award entity. And then we have the year of the award was given. We have the winner, basically, the winner of the award. We have the nominations of the award, and we have the categories, which will be something like, I don't know, the Blimp Award or something like that. And no, it will be like Emmys or Oscars or whatnot. These are like categories. Finally, you have the title. The title will be like the Women's Choice Award or Best Actor Male category or something like that. So this is for the awards category. We can see an example right about here. For Chris Pratt and his list of awards, I bet he has many. And we see the Kids' Choice Awards, that's the category of the award, and we can see the nominee, 2020 nominee, and Blimp Award will be the title. This is just an overview of how IMDb does their award database entity, and so that's kind of what we want to achieve with that. Moving on to our final entity, and this is a very special one, it is a review entity. And we can see it has two rectangles in it. This is to indicate that this is a weak entity. And what is a weak entity? It's just an entity that cannot exist on its own. In the case of reviews in our ER diagram and database, it will just, a review cannot exist without a movie, because if you don't have a movie, you cannot base a review out of anything. And so that's why it's a weak entity, because it cannot exist on its own. The key entity attribute of reviews is going to be called partial in this case. That's why I had dotted lines, but it's the user, because we assume that a user profile is the best way to check if, for one review, because one user can have one review. The review is the content of the review, the rating is the score that specific user gives for the movie, and the type is just to differentiate between a user or a critic review, or other types of reviews. And this is a review entity example as we see for the Super Mario Bros. Movies, specifically looking at user reviews. This is the type of reviews we're looking at. We can see the title of the review, we can see the content of the review right about here. We got this huge text here, this is the content of the review portion. We can see the rating of the review as well. And so this will be, this rating, when we aggregate all these ratings, will be what we use to derive the rating attribute of the movie's entity.
Continuing the discussion, I'll be talking about the relationships in our ER diagram. I will also be talking about the cardinality ratio and the total and partial constraints. So our main entity, movie, and our entity directors have a direct relationship. What is a relationship? The relationship is, in this case, represented by this, in this rhombus form. And so we can say that a movie entity must, this is a constraint, a total constraint, must be directed by multiple directors. So what is a total constraint? Backing up. A total constraint enforces a mandatory participation or existing requirement for involvement. So a movie must be directed by multiple directors, whereas directors may or may not direct n number of movies. So this is here what we call a partial constraint. Basically, a partial constraint means that an entity in the partial side of the relationship may or may not be related to an entity in the total side. So we say a director might or might not uh, direct n number of movies. So it can direct one at a time, or it might mm, direct many. So that's why we use a partial constraint. Following, we have our actor entity, which relates to the movie entity as well. So we say movies are must be worked for m number of actors, multiple actors. But on the other hand, an actor might or might not work on n number of movies. We also have our awards entity. Movies might receive n number of awards. And also an award might or might not be received by one movie. So it goes to one movie only. So we have, as my classmates were explaining, we have categories. So like best movie of the year or like best movie for kids. So if this movie doesn't make it, the next movie will get the prize or the award and so on and so forth. Also, we have our reviews entity. This is our weak entity. So meaning that if movie wouldn't exist, like if a movie wouldn't be produced, then reviews wouldn't exist, meaning that reviews depend on movies. So we say if movies might or might not be rated by n number of users reviews, but we say that if movies exist, reviews must rate one movie. Then we say the directors and production company. So a director might or might not work for a production company, might be hired by a different entity, or a production company might or might not uh, hire n number of directors. Lastly, we have the relationship between our production company and our movie entity. So a production company might or might not produce n number of movies, but movie must be produced by one production company. So that's wrapping up all our discussion and our explanation of our ER diagram. And thank you. Thank you for listening to our presentation. See you next time.